各位大家好，欢迎大家来参加今天这个场次，那应该也是今天的最后一个场次我们所要探讨的主题就是选举当中的假讯息的课题。这次我们的论坛主题，所谈的就是在选举年当中的新闻专业。那的确在根据很多的这个大家都已经很了解的这个资讯，那么全球大概有半数的人口今年都要进行这个投票的一个行为那这是一个大的选举。那么在这个民主的角度来讲，选民要在这个选举的过程中，最重要的就是希望依据可靠、真实的资讯来做出他投票的理性抉择理论上是民主政治一个非常重要的原理。那可惜假讯息的问题的出现，显然是在打破这样的一个基本的一个民主运作的这个原理，所以对民主也产生了很大的威胁。我想这是今天讨论这个议题重要的一个缘由。我查了一下，菲律宾在前年5月举行了总统大选今天我们有在场来自菲律宾的贵宾那明年的5月还要投票选举地方的领导，还有参众两院的议员。泰国刚才已经说明，在去年的5月举行了国会众议院的选举那印尼是在今年的2月举行总统大选。我想不管前或后都有非常多的经验也是今天我们邀请的这些代表能够来跟我们来分享他们的看法跟他们的这个观察的原因。那台湾我就不用多说了我们今天有2位讲者，是来自台湾。台湾是在今年的1月进行了总统跟立法委员的选举。那这个场次我们很难得邀请了一共4个国家的5位讲者，那他们都是很资深而且很权威的新闻工作者或者是事实查核组织的负责人。我们希望他们共同来探讨选举中的假讯息课题。根据我们大会所分享的这个主题，我们大概希望在这样的一个 session 当中，我们讨论的假讯息对民主政治的危害。也希望能够对假讯息的产生跟查核一个互相的交流。那最后一个是关于编辑室要如何应对假讯息及认知的作战。就我所知the 5 speakers have prepared all have prepared wonderful speeches. Due to limited time and the conference manual have provided basic information of our speaker's profile. So I will just invite every speakers, just say hello to everyone and without more detailed introductions. According to the order of sitting, the first speaker is here. What you Dithamika, okay. It's hard for me to pronounce really correctly. CEO of Indonesia Tempo Digital. Yeah. Follow is Mrs. Leon Brown. Okay. Leon Brown. Okay. Senior investigative reporter from Rocker, in Philippines. And then I just learned how to pronounce his name correctly, but he said, "You just call me N." So then N from editor-in-chief of Today in Thailand. 那我们台湾的2位那第一位就照我的右手边顺序是台湾事实查核中心的执行长邱佳怡女士然后再接下来是我们这个 应该亚洲智有电台亚洲事实查核中心亚洲事实查核实验室主任李志德先生。我们非常 honor 有这个5位贵宾。So according to the order which our conference organizer provided, the first speaker will be here. Wanyu. Let's invite Wanyu to give us a speech.
Thank you. So good afternoon again, and I think we've been learning a lot from the first 2 sessions, starting from we started from the discussion on the geopolitical impact of elections, and then we talk about the interference in the election. I think it's natural that we also spend the next few hours talking about misinformation and disinformation in the election. So I think this is a graph that can probably give some idea of how information ecosystem developed in Indonesia around the time of the election. This is some of the keywords that become prominently discussed on social media platforms. You can see the names of the candidates: Prabowo, Anies Baswedan, Ganjar Pranowo. Those are the 3 presidential candidates. But you can also see some verbs and adjective that becomes the topics of political debates and conversation around the election. I think by showing this, I want to emphasize the usage of keywords in our election monitoring and fact-checking efforts in Indonesia. So I was lucky to be part of the Indonesian Fact-Checking Coalition, started back in 2018. Before our election back 5 years ago in 2019. If you recall, maybe some of you still remember, there was this big governor election in Jakarta between the incumbent Basuki Cahayapurnama. It's a triple minority incumbent. So he was a Christian in a Muslim majority country, and he is a Chinese Indonesian descent, and also he come outside of Java, so he's a Sumatranese born. So with this triple majority, he was becoming a target of a vicious misinformation and disinformation campaign, and he lost the election in Jakarta in 2018. So us in the media at the time, I think that was the first experience for us in the media facing this new environment of mis and disinformation, and we were ill-equipped. We were not ready to face this challenge because we were looking at news, current affair, and report the news based on what we've been doing for years, straight news, in-depth report, long form. But this kind of new challenge, social media postings, conversation based on new keywords that does not come up in our normal radar, normal monitoring as a journalist. This is completely new for us in the media back then. So we started a fact-checking coalition, consists of 24 media working together to regularly monitor social media and produce fact-checking content together. So if my team at Tempo consists of 4 fact-checkers, all of our content can be used by the other media freely. Only need to attribute that this is Tempo's article. And vice versa, my media can also use other newsrooms fact-checking content for free. So that way we can pool our resources and tackle much more keywords, disinformation and misinformation keywords than we normally would have been able to do with our respective resources. So that was our first initial response to the misinformation and disinformation back in 2018-2019 campaign. It was a really polarized election because Prabowo at the time ran on the platform of change against Joko Widodo, who was running for his second term. And there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation about the background of both candidates, about what will happen and what already happened based on the track records of both candidates. So moving forward, the last election, 2024, we have a more robust coalition this time. Now we have more than 100 media, national and local media, being part of the coalition. And this is some of the findings that we collected throughout the campaign period. Some of the types of misinformation, disinformation during the election. The first type was edited photos manipulation and adding text on original photos. This is one of the most prominent type of misinformation, disinformation we found. And we monitored how this content first appeared on social media platform, how many people engage with this particular content, and based on this analytic, we decide which of the content that needs to be tackled first. So we collaborate with a analytic organization to do this monitoring, and as in 2018, we collaborate with the other newsrooms to do the fact-checking. The second model that also quite prominent at the election is edited videos and adding text to original video. So the video can be manipulated, added by other video that are different in context, or sometimes they use original video. There's nothing edited in the video, but they added text that are not really explaining the video. So wrong context for the video. So we employ different tools and techniques to debunk this model. For videos is more complicated than photo, because for photo usually you only have to find the original source of the photo to determine whether that's manipulated or not. But for videos it's more complicated because you need to really find which part of the video that wants to be that needs to be verified. It takes longer. On average, we spend 1 or 2 days for to debunk a particular video disinformation content. This is the most difficult part, is fake or manipulated content. So we don't have the original source. So if you come across this kind of disinformation or misinformation, usually it's sometimes it's generated, so using deep fake. Some of the most prominent content that use this kind of type in Indonesia's last election is a speech that allegedly delivered by Indonesian President Joko Widodo, but in Mandarin. So it somehow wants to emphasize the connection between Indonesia's president and his allegedly close relation with China. As some of you might aware, being connected to China can be advantage and also can be a disadvantage for politicians in Indonesia. So this new kind of misinformation, disinformation using AI, using technology, is the one that the newest type of misinformation that we haven't found in previous elections. Other than the type of content, we also analyze the distribution of those misinformation and disinformation. This is the two findings out of daily reports that we receive throughout the 3 months campaign period of the election. And one of the key insights that we realized that most of this disinformation and misinformation content are distributed by influencers and content creators on social media. They have a large following, and whenever we debunk this post, usually they will remove it, and then it will happen again in another cycle. So there is no sanction, there is no punishment, there is no mechanism to make sure that this repeated offender can be in a way removed or its influence limited on these platforms. And usually it will be will peak, the distribution will peak on 1 or 2 days, and then after that it will move on to another topic. So it's like chasing a really hard to find source of a network of content. So we definitely need better technology to be able to monitor all of this trend on social media platforms. So I think this is some of the lesson learned that we managed to compile from the last election. We believe that tackling mis and disinformation needs to be a collaborative effort, and the network that tackle this trend should consist of at least 5 different actors: the publishers, the media itself, and then the platform needs to be on board. All technology platform needs to be on board. And then the users itself, the users of the internet, the public in general, the government also have to be on board. And the last but not least important actors are the civil society and the academics. So before the start of the election campaign, we were fortunate enough to have this chance to discuss our preparation for fact-checking in Indonesia election with Maria Ressa, Lian's boss at Rappler. So Philippines has an election before Indonesia. I think Lian then will have more stories about that election. But one of her insight, Maria's insight, that she told us that she wished she had more time to prepare the network to handle this mis and disinformation during election. So she said she launched her coalition 3 months right before the election. She talked to us 1 year before Indonesia's election, early last year. One of the key lessons from the Philippine election that we replicate in Indonesia is the importance of having this mass system, these layers of different actors. Started from the bottom is the media, the publishers, the fact checkers, and then once we post the content, we need civil society actors, mass organizations that represent different communities to amplify the content, the fact-checking content. And then we also need researchers, academics to see the trend, to analyze the trend, to help us learn who is the source and how this misinformation and disinformation campaign works. So we did that. We have a network of 15 campuses working with us during the election, and we have more than 50 civil society organizations to amplify each of the content that we distribute, debunking all the hoaxes that we encounter. But at the end of the day, I think there is still much more things to do to help us prevent misinformation and disinformation. So even what I'm trying to say is even 1 year is not enough. Even 1 year before the election to prepare this network is not enough, because what we are facing here is a change of behavior, a change of pattern when people consume information on digital. We are facing a much larger challenge, and focusing only at election sometimes can blur what is the real objective, because this kind of works can only be measured in the long-term indicators. So when people ask me, do you think Indonesia managed to prevent misinformation and disinformation during the last election? I don't have an answer. I don't know. I only can give you the numbers that we produce X amount of content, we debunk X amount of misinformation and disinformation, we reach X amount of people. But do we really change the landscape? Do we really prevent people from voting based on not credible information? Do we manage to influence people not to be voting based on wrong information? We don't know. What we I think that can only be measured in a long-term way. So I think that the main message that I want to say here is that we need a village. We need everyone to be on board. The social media platforms, the technology platforms should allow academics and media to receive data, because this is something that they've been really protective about. They don't really open their data about this misinformation and disinformation content. And in particular, I have to say that TikTok is the one that really close. They're really protective about their data. Luckily, we have this collaboration with Facebook, so they allow us to engage with their dashboards. Google has been quite open, but I think we can do more if we collaborate with these platforms to identify the trends of misinformation and disinformation. And secondly, I think we need to involve the communities, the public. We need to involve, we need to educate more people to be fact checkers. I think in the earlier session there was a talk about the need for media literacy, but I think it needs to be more massive. It needs to be start from an early age at schools, because this is a new landscape of media and information ecosystem that has to be dealt with collectively and in a very comprehensive way. So I guess that's the lesson learned from Indonesia's election and the way we handle misinformation and disinformation, and hopefully we can engage in more discussion afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wayu. Then Mika. Okay. He gave us a brief introduction of disinformation or misinformation, which was happened in Indonesia election, and he gave us some advice for further work. And he mentioned about the data which we needed to know what's the result of fact-checking, of our fact-checking effort, but is still a myth. We don't get data from the technical company. Yeah, it's really a problem. Next, Ms. Lian Boon. Yeah, thank you. We invite you, to give us a speech.
Hello everybody, I'm Lian. I'm from the Philippines. The Philippines is a very young democracy. We only restored our democracy in 1986 when we ousted our dictator Ferdinand Marcos Sr. In 2022, when our democracy turned 36 years old, guess who we voted as our president? The son of our dictator. I once spoke to a group of German students and they said, how can you vote for the dictator's son? We cannot imagine ever voting for Hitler's grandson or something. So I've had quite a bit of a self-reflection, and today I wish to answer that question, try to answer that question, why did we vote for our dictator's son? So I'm a justice and human rights reporter. I don't like politics, and I have long resisted being assigned to the political beat, which is why I felt like this assignment was some sort of punishment at first. Because Rappler only has 10 reporters, and in 2022 there were 10 presidential candidates, so we really didn't have any choice but to field all reporters. And to my editor's credit, they asked us who we wanted to cover. I listed so many names, but they still ended up assigning me to the one that I didn't include in my list. But somebody told me, they said, Lian, the dictatorship is a justice and human rights issue. Don't you want the dictator's son to be covered from a justice and human rights lens? So I was like, okay, fine. So this is what I hope to answer for this afternoon. I'll go back. The thing with justice and human rights in the context of the Marcos dictatorship is we are battling fake news that started way, way before. There has been disinformation about the Marcos rule ever since before this information became a buzzword. So there has been fake news about the Marcos rule even before the internet. This fake news existed inside our homes, in the dinner table, in the street when people drink together. So that's the kind of fake news we had been battling. So if people ask me, when do you think Marcos Jr. began his ascent to the presidency? Some people would say 2022. Some people would say, oh, it's in 2016 when he lost the vice presidency and he really began the machinery to win 6 years later. I would say it began when he was 15 years old, when his father declared martial law over the Philippines, that he began his ascent to the presidency. So let's go through the myths that won him the 2022 elections. Myth number one, I would say, is that his father's dictatorship was the golden era. Let me just give you figures of that golden era. In the 21 years that Marcos Sr. was a dictator, 9 years of those was under martial law. He detained 70,000 people, tortured 34,000 people, and 3,240 people disappeared and presumed to have been dead. He holds the Guinness World Book of Records as being a kleptocrat. He plunged Philippines to debt, to massive debt, and we lost decades worth of development that we're still recovering. And this is not coming from me. This is coming from all kinds of historical record, economic record, academic journals, you name it. But having spent 6 months on the ground in the campaign, I could say many people still believe that martial law was the golden era. And that is made possible because Filipinos are very family-oriented. So if my grandmother tells me it was the golden era, I will believe it's the golden era. We didn't include martial law in our education curriculum, so I will only learn about martial law if my teacher wants me to learn martial law. I was born in the so-called the solid north, where they come from. I speak the same local language as them. I've been told all my life that it was the golden era. So imagine the awkward family dinners during the election campaign when I was covering Marcos Jr. The reason why this myth that it was the golden era was able to propagate is because, number one, we didn't include it in our curriculum. Number two, we never held a local trial for the dictator. So everything else that needs to be recorded in the judicial dockets happened in Hawaii, in the United States. And if we have a foreign jurisdiction ruling, it's very easy to obfuscate. It's very easy to say, but why will we let the Americans judge us? And those rulings are never almost enforced. We have had rulings from Hawaii, from California, and it's never enforced. So it's very easy for the Marcos family to say, oh, that's nothing, because it's never been enforced. Our judiciary, I would say, is weak. So the local cases never prospered. Our court convicted Imelda Marcos in 2018. He never spent a day in jail. She never spent a day in jail. We are still recovering billions in ill-gotten wealth that we declared is a Marcos ill-gotten wealth. Yet many people still say, oh, but there's never been any proven stolen money. And even though I say, oh, look at GR number, whatever in the Supreme Court, but nobody will believe me. It's this kind of environment that has let all these myths propagate. I never quite believed that this myth was potent because I come from a university where I was taught martial law. So at college, I began like seeing beyond what my grandmother was telling me. So I said, oh, you know, this is not potent. Until I spent some time in the campaign trail and I realized, wow. I like to tell people that in February, when the official campaign period began, I said, Marcos Jr. is gonna win. We have our new president. I can see it in their eyes, he's gonna win. When I talk to people on the ground, the voters on the ground, I would always ask them, so why are you voting for Marcos Jr.? And they would always say, because we want the Marcos golden era back. So that's how potent the myth is. Myth number 2 absolves Marcos Jr. of any kind of accountability for what his father did. So they would always say, but he was just a young boy back then. Even though we literally have a photo of the deposed dictator while Malacanang, our palace, was being seized with Marcos Jr. on the utmost, on the other side, wearing fatigues. That is not the image of a young boy who does not know what's going on. So here's the political timeline of Marcos Jr. He was 15 years old when martial law was declared, so also not a young boy back then. He was in fatigues, as you saw, when they left the country and sent into exile in Hawaii. And one of the things that I believe let the myths propagate is that when he came back, he became almost immediately a local politician. So he worked from being a vice governor, governor, representative, senator, and then to become the president. This is how the Philippines treats the son of a dictator. Vote him immediately into local office after exile. The third myth, this is Marcos in his high school days in the United Kingdom. He went to a boarding school. His supporters look at him like he's the heir to the throne. He's the bright kid from Oxford and Wharton. So we reported that actually, he never got a degree from Oxford. We have documents saying it, and once Oxford was, I guess, so tired from persistent requests, they actually said it on record in a statement. We reported it, but did the people believe me? No. Because even though we have records saying he doesn't have an Oxford degree, he would still say to the press that he selects, that he has an Oxford degree. But he doesn't. He also likes to say that he has an MBA, or at least Wharton credentials. He also never got a degree from Wharton. I have an email from Wharton saying he never got a degree. And one of my questions to Wharton was, how can you accept an MBA candidate if he doesn't have an undergraduate degree from Oxford, which we have confirmed that he doesn't have? The correspondence ended there. So if we are to trace how the myths propagate, I would say that the superpowers also had a hand. Why would Oxford give him a special diploma when he can't finish the requirements of a degree? And why would Wharton admit a non-graduate to its master's program? The fourth myth is more recent. Ferdinand Marcos Jr., after serving as a senator, ran as a vice president of the Philippines in 2016. People thought it was in the bag. He didn't have a very strong opponent. He was probably his most formidable opponent was Leni Robredo, who was a neophyte politician at the time. But Robredo pulled off a surprise victory, and Leni Robredo won by only 263,000 votes. So a very, very, very slim margin. So immediately, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. filed an electoral protest before the Supreme Court to claim that he was cheated of the vice presidency. So for 6 years, that case ran in the Supreme Court, and that is the myth, that he was always supposed to be our vice president on his way to becoming a president. But of course, the Supreme Court in 2020 dismissed the petition and declared that there was no cheating in the elections. But did that convince supporters? No, it didn't. So even a Supreme Court decision doesn't convince voters. The fifth myth, I should have included a photo with the vice president. The fifth myth is that he is the unifying leader that the Philippines needs at a highly divisive and polarized time. This, I admit, was half true, half myth. Because when he launched his campaign, he would always say unity. I would count the number of times he would say unity. And at first, like journalists like me scoffed at it. It's like, I always reported at least that his speeches are devoid of any policy, he doesn't discuss any kind of platform, but he will always say unity. In his kick-off speech, he mentioned unity 32 times. And we found it laughable until I began talking to voters, that I soon realized that this was a brilliant move. The unity campaign captured a unique psyche of the Filipino that is non-confrontational. We don't like making enemies. We're not a war-free kind of people. We like to be happy. And we were just coming out of the pandemic. And we were just coming out of the Duterte fatigue. So people didn't want bickering. And so 3 months into the campaign, I was like, he's gonna win. This was a clever move. But I would say that this is a myth, because breaking news from the Philippines this week, his vice president, the daughter of President Rodrigo Duterte, Vice President Sara Duterte, just resigned from her cabinet posts in the Marcos administration, effectively marking the official breakup of Uniteam only 2 years into the presidency. So we've known all along that it was a marriage of convenience, but of course at the time, the myth was so nice. He's the unifying leader. He's the dictator's son, but he's the unifying leader. That's a great narrative, and it was a very potent myth. He is able to preserve his myths during the election period because he doesn't face the press. He doesn't attend any debate. He didn't attend a single debate in the Philippines. He doesn't attend press conferences. He would hide from the press. I have a video of him walking out from me when I asked the question. He or his team would select only journalists that they like for a one-on-one. So he's able to preserve the myth because less talk, less mistake. So he stayed very quiet. He's your nice guy. He's not confrontational. He's really nice, very soft-spoken. He's very quiet, but his defenders waged a noisy war online. So he's very quiet, but there's a battlefield online. For example, this was a very big issue during the campaign. So the Marcos estate is worth 23 billion pesos in taxes, which the Supreme Court started to collect since 2003. They didn't pay. So at 2022, plus surcharge, penalty, lawyers estimate that the estate tax has grown to 203 billion pesos. So that was a serious question, right? It's a serious question to ask your future president. when will you pay what you owe to the Filipino people? But he evades any question altogether. But his supporters would spread fake news. And because it's tax, nobody understands tax. I don't even understand tax. It's law, nobody understands law. It's very easy to weaponize. So, he gets away with all these obfuscated legal tax-related justifications for the estate tax. One of the funniest that I found was that, why would you collect from the son the tax of the father's estate? And I would always repeat, he is the court-appointed administrator of the estate. Of course, he's bound to pay the estate tax. So, during the election, I said, I don't really like TikTok, but I think I have no more choice. There was a whole battlefield on TikTok. Young people that I would meet online, I would ask, and I would ask them where they got their source from, and they would say TikTok. So I just felt like it was a moral obligation for me to swallow my pride and go to TikTok. So we would release explainers like this. So this is me explaining the estate tax issue on TikTok. And we had quite a bit of traction, but again, we started too late. I went on TikTok, I think a month after the official campaign period. And, like, what is a boring reporter? What does a boring reporter stand a chance when there were fan cams on TikTok? You would have fan cams of Marcos as a handsome young boy in the UK. You would have fan cams of the family to really sappy music. You would have fan cams of the eldest, Sandro Marcos, who is packaged as a heartthrob. And you can see the fan cams continue to today. So Marcos videos, from data from other news organizations, Marcos videos went from 4.6 billion views to 6.2 billion views in just 5 weeks. And according to our own fact-check coalition, Philippines' own fact-check coalition, Marcos is the biggest beneficiary of fake news and Robredo is the biggest victim. And Marcos's network, or those network which spread Marcos content, is from fewer sources. So it comes from the same. I wish I could show you how the fan cams are. Believe me, I almost I really went through the rabbit hole. I think I spent one night, 5 hours, just admiring the Marcos family because the fan cams were so effective. This is another example of how potent the myth is. So, the Marcos myth is that he has access to gold bars, and if he wins the presidency, Filipinos would have access to the gold bars. And if you ask Marcos, he will not address it. Of course, he cannot claim to have gold bars, but he doesn't want to dispute that he has access to those gold bars because those people you see there actually believe they would have share of the gold bars. So that's thousands of people flocking to a university to have their share of the gold bars. After the gold became a big issue during the campaign, Marcos told the reporter, I never saw any gold. So me, the nerdy, went to court, our anti-graft court, and spent some days going through records. And I found an affidavit of him from 2007. He wanted his family to take possession of some assets that were being seized from them. So he told the court in an affidavit, in a notarized affidavit, that these assets are ours because my father earned his wealth from gold. So he has been propagating this myth in the court since all that time. The result of trying to be persistent when it comes to debunking the Marcos myth is both virtual and physical. So these two below, This is a TV network that's supportive of Marcos. So for weeks, they ran stories about me and used what I stupidly uploaded on my social media pages from years ago. So they would consistently publish stories about me. That TikTok screen grab is when they started red tagging me. Red tagging is a phenomenon in the Philippines where they tag you as an ally of the armed communist rebels. So that's me being red tagged. And the YouTube screenshot from above is me shoved aside by the security personnel of Mr. Marcos Jr. And we go to the last slide. This is a very recent story by Time Magazine that, to be fair, puts in context the whole background and the baggage of the Marcos family. Yet, Bongbong's desire to rehabilitate the Marcos name has resulted in other shifts. He brought technocrats back into government, steadied the post-pandemic economy, and elevated the Philippines on the world stage. I end with this story just because I wanted to say that it's things like this, a feature from a Time magazine, that seems to make an odd hero out of the dictator's son. I believe it's little things like this that chip away at our collective memory. And it's little things like this that make us, as a Filipino, forget until one day we no longer have anything to remember. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Lian Gu. I think most of the people here knows the name of Robert. Although there are those of fact-checking organizations in the world, but the situation of this organization is different. Robert have to face a difficult environment. They have to fight for freedom to tell the truth. So it's totally another story. I think we have to learn about more the situation of your organization. Next, M will tell the story of Thailand. Please.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, no more models. I can be here this time. So carry on from chapter 1, the politics 101. So we just had a new government last year, and you may wonder, so the government isn't the winning party, right? So the popularity isn't high. It's actually on the decline because it was Thaksin party that used to be the winners in the election. But this time they are the losing party. And with the rise of digital media, so the landscape become organic. When I said organic, it's that two-way communication is a lot more difficult to put propaganda issue, to put, to narrate a message to the broad audience. So one may wonder then how the government can survive in this climate. Just a second. I will introduce you this innovation that the innovation from the Thai government is called IO. So the IO stands for Information Operation, which has been reviewed a few years ago. Information operation kind of looks like this. So nowadays, people in Thailand, they use a lot of social media, right? I think it's similar to a lot of countries in Asia that we are very social media, Facebook, TikTok, consume. And these are the comments made by IO, made by operations that mostly are the people that hired by the government or military to praise, to put positive comments for the Prime Minister or for the government agency. So all these basically say like, okay, we are here to support you. This is in Thai. Basically they say, you have done very well. So imagine that if I am the Prime Minister, if I post a picture of me on Facebook, and there will be thousands of comments saying how handsome I am today. You know, which is sort of a fake news, right? Okay? Because I'm not that handsome. But there will be plenty of comments like this on, because I work in news organization and I get to see this comment all the time. Whenever I post a photo of Prime Minister, even it's about news, there will be people coming flooding like, government is doing a good job, government is doing a good job. Keep repeating the same sentence, but it doesn't look organic. And soon enough, people will find out that this is not real, right? To be more precise, if you take a look at the profile picture, most of these are actually the logo of the military ranks in Thailand. So it looks even more fake, right? So here is one of the tactics that people use, that the government use in order to narrate the message. To be honest, the IO tactic doesn't actually is not very successful. So people find out that these are IO. In Thailand, we always say like IO. Whenever the organic netizen find this out, they always comment like, okay, they always in Thailand said by part, which mean like take a break. Because like they know that these people are high to comment on Facebook. But what actually may be a little bit effective in Thailand was that the entire system of the Thai military and Thai government, they not only penetrate on social media, but they also have television that spread all this positive sentiment for the government. So all those IO comments are being reported on television as well. You see that? You see the system? That's how they try to manipulate the content. In fact, in my experience, I don't think it is effective. I don't think it works. I think most of the Thai audience know what's going on, but they still kind of they're being able to at least manipulate maybe 5 or 10% of the country that still believe this kind of message. Saying all this is kind of, you know, like, you have to understand that in Thai politics, we know what's going on, and we know that there are things that is very wrong in this country. You know, like the winning party doesn't actually get to govern. You know that we actually, when we talk about IO, it's actually our money paying for those IO, right? Because it's the government agency that hired the people to say something positively about the government. So it's actually our money, it's a taxpayer's money. We know that, but at the end we cannot do anything because the barrier that kept the democracy to go in a correct way is the hard power, is the court and military. So this is, I would say, the summarize of the first chapter is that government popularity remain low right now. Even they just won the election they didn't win the election. Even they just formed the election last year, but it's very low right now. IO is not as effective. But in the broader picture, there are a few hard power factors, which is military and corruption, that is still going on right now. So the big question now is how does the country go with all these things that doesn't make sense? the main technique that they are using now is distraction. I think this is the technique that used worldwide when it comes to political system. You know, like in Thailand, they're gonna find out that, you know, like they use music, they use sports, or sometimes they use one of the most popular news show in Thailand is something comparing to Jerry Springer in the US, where they have people, you know, like husband and wife fighting each other on TV. So that is always the main topics that people discuss. On the same day when, you know, like political system corrupt people's life, when there are smog, if you go to Chiang Mai, a northern city in Thailand, if you go to Chiang Mai in February or in January, you're gonna find a very, very polluted air, a haze, a smog, that when you breathe, it's actually killing you, right? But on the same day when those smog is at its worst, on television, they're still putting all this like Jerry Springer sort of show on air, you know, like wife fighting with husband, and people kind of addicted to this kind of show. Of course, I wouldn't say Thai people are stupid. We know that what's going on, but there's not much we can do. You know, like all of these things that going on in our life that is wrong, it is too big for us Thai people to do anything about it. The smogs, the corruption, and the constitution system that's kind of corrupt the power, that there are bigger players that Thai people cannot do anything about it. When it comes to politics, there are serious matters, because this is Bung Thalukwang. She is an activist. Her real name is Netiporn Sane Sangkom. She was 28 years old. She just passed away last month after she putting on a protest, and she didn't eat anything for months. And she was protesting against the Lèse Majesty, the 112 article, the laws that put people in prison when you speak negatively about the monarchy. The country tried to reduce this kind of atmosphere. They try not to keep the prisoners in prison for too long, but there are still some cases that it is a serious case and show that Thai politics and Thai media isn't yet in a healthy state. Can I have the second one? Okay. Yes. When speaking of fake news and online media, just a second. Okay. Of course, similar to a lot of countries, TikTok is being watched. In Thailand, the average number is 8 hours for average Thai people to consume TikTok. That's a lot of hours, right? Because we sleep 8 hours. It's 8 hours. You comparing it. A lot of people they turn on TikTok and they just keep going. And a lot of people watch YouTube and listen to YouTube podcast as they listen to radio in the old days. But for my opinion, I think the Orange Party benefit greatly from the rise of TikTok. So in the last election, they use a lot of social media and TikTok to campaign to their victory. But this is important. People will say like, okay, the party, people might say that because of TikTok that allowed the party to win the election. But I would say the opposite. I would say that TikTok is only the platform that allow people to see what the party does, and at the end they won the election. It is a slightly different then, because like if you say like because TikTok making the Orange Party winning the election, then a lot of party is kind of, okay, next election, we're gonna penetrate on TikTok and do the old school politics, and then we're gonna win the election, when in fact that might not be the case. This, in the last few years, I want to talk about fake news. In the last few years, I think this is maybe the most obvious case when it comes to fake news. It was the case about pension that the Orange Party politicians have to face a lot of questions whether if they become the government, they will cut off all the pension. But again, I would say in Thailand, in my opinion, I think the media literacy and the digital online climate is healthy enough that the comment and people will interact with each other and kind of cancel off all the fake news. So right now it is at that stage where it's still healthy enough that people will inform each other which is right or wrong. Same with what happened to IO thing. So I have mentioned a bit about IO, which is not effective. To be honest, I don't think it's not that big of an issue in Thailand right now. Again, fake news, I don't think it's not that big of an issue in Thailand right now. So what are the key issues in Thai media now? The first, I would say, financial struggling. In the last 2 months, there are more than 2,000 people in news and media industry that get laid off. So they are out of job within the last 2 months. 2,000 people, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of people there. And this struggling is still continues. In a way, it happens because it's a social media revolution. But at the same time, it says a lot about the state of Thai journalism now. So when the media struggling financially, what happens then? They become more self-censorship. They say a lot less because they have to rely on corporate money. They have to rely on government money. I think it goes to the same with a lot of countries. Right now, it's like content creator, like influencer and key opinion leader taking the world of online media, especially in Thailand. So there's not much of journalism out there. There's not enough people who are brave enough to go out there to have a time, to have resource, to do a quality journalism and produce it for the society. But at the same time, I think this is, if I have spent 15 minutes on this matters, but if there is one thing I want you to keep in mind, is that in Thailand, I learned that in whatever position of the people that they are, in reality, they perform one lower of their position. You know what I mean? Thinking about the Prime Minister, in the common sense, supposed to be the leader, right? Supposed to be in charge of the power. But think about the current Prime Minister. He's not actually the party leader. He's not actually number one in the party, let alone the country. Supposedly he actually mentioned in the Time magazine that in the interview that he found out that he has a lot less power when he becomes the Prime Minister. Right? And that goes to the same, that mantra, like people, everyone in Thailand perform one less degree in their actual position. When it comes to media and journalists, what we actually do is PR and spreading government message. That is what we are doing now. This is a brutal truth, but that I have to mention. Then who does the journalist job? One may ask. People who does the journalist job are the politicians and the NGO. So they're doing all these activities, they're doing all this research to put on their work, and the journalists pick that up and put on our website. So those are sort of the rules that going in Thailand right now. So I think I've used up my 15 minutes. I'm gonna be here again tomorrow to spend more time talking. Apology for that. But I'm going to be here again tomorrow to spend more time digging more about media and elections. Thank you for today.
Thank you, Ken. He talked about the real effect of government propaganda and the situation of the media industry in Thailand. It seems the future of journalism is not very so bright. I wonder, one I/O, if we talk I/O with Thailand people, is it any special meaning inside? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. And most of the speakers talk about the function of TikTok. Probably we can discuss it later. 然后我们要把时间这个目光转到台湾。我们接下来要请这个亚洲事实查核实验室的李志德先生来跟我们分享他的所见跟他的看法。请。
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Lee from Asia Fact Check Lab. But for I will report in Chinese for express precisely, and so sorry for I will turn to Chinese. Thank you. 好，大家好，我是李志的，来自亚洲事实查核实验室。这是一个2022年成立的一个新的单位。那我们和我们的这个友军台湾事实查核中心经常一起工作。那但是我们也有跟这个台湾事实查核中心不一样的地方，就是我们的这个工作范围，我们更多的，或者是不是说更多，我们就专注于这个政治类新闻的查核。好，政治新闻的查核，因为我们认为这一类的讯息其实危害对台湾的这个危害其实是更大的。好。那我等一下会仔细的介绍我的工作，那我自己的这个简历大家这个参看就好，就是反正我现在最下面的这一行啊。那我跟大家介绍一下，亚洲事实查核实验室属于这个自由亚洲电台。那我们刚刚说过，我们在2022年10月的时候成立。我们成立的时候，我们给我们自己的工作，成立的目的其实就是做这个政治类新闻的查核。那我们也希望自己做的比这个传统的事实查核做的更多一些。也就是说，我们大家现在在这个上面看到一个像靶一样这样的一个同心圆哈，我们把它分成 A、B、C、D。也就是说，我们在平常所见到的这些我们查核对象的政治新闻里面 ，A 类来自于这个政府的资讯 ，B 类来自于公有媒体、公营媒体或者是政府影响力能够高度控制的媒体 ，C 类来自于这个社交平台。那这个社交平台，我们有的时候会发现它的这个所有的发文跟它表达的立场跟这个政府是高度一致的。然后 D 类一般自由流通的资讯，当然也可能会有错误，所以我们从 A、B、C、D 这4类讯息当中去发掘单件的需要查核的新闻，在这4类当中。那现在大家在这个左上角上面看到一个一，然后这个一是什么意思呢？也就是说，我们在我们平常的工作当中，除了单则的事实查核以外，我们还希望能够从 A、B、C、D 的这些范围里面，发现政治传播或者我们说 propaganda 里面的一些共通的现象、共通的规律，我们从那里面去发展我们的这个深度调查或者是专题报道。这个就是我们这个给自己工作的这个范围跟我们的这个产品的不同的形态。那我们今天的主题，大家可以先看一下，但是因为时间的关系，我不会每一个都仔细的介绍。那我在这个 PowerPoint 里面有，对不起，我在各位的这个手上的这个资料里面，如果就看文字就能够看得清楚的，那我就不多做介绍，我就会跳过。我希望把时间更多的专注在一些我稍微需要解释一点的题目。 那第一个就是说，我们在整个选举，在去年，从去年底到今年初，整个台湾总统大选的这个过程里面，那我按照我们的这个工作的时间序，我们把它分成几个阶段。第一个阶段的话，它叫做暖身时间。所谓的暖身时间，就是说，虽然大选还没有到，但是类似的这个政治上议题的攻防其实已经开始了哈。那我们会在这里面看到一些比较有意思的例子。那我举一个我们工作上的例子给大家看。在去年的7月12号，台湾有一个媒体报道的一个新闻，这个新闻是一个独家新闻，他宣称他拿到了一份秘密的会议记录，这个会议记录是政府，就是台湾民进党政府内部的一个会议记录，然后这个会议记录上面讲得非常的清楚，这里面明白的说，美国要求这个台湾，就是要求中华民国台湾发展生化武器。因为在美国做生化武器是不允许的，但是在台湾可以，所以就要求台湾配合美国发展生化武器。我们当时看到这个新闻的时候，觉得这个事情的影响其实非常的严重，因为它立刻让我们想到第2次波斯湾战争，小布希总统出兵的理由就是伊拉克有化学武器。那事后找到没找到那是另外一件事情，但是这个是完全足以作为出兵攻打一个国家的理由。那像这样的一件事情，我们觉得作为一个事实查核组织，我们必须去查核它。于是我们就针对这个会议记录就开始做查核。那因为这个也还好，这个报纸因为未遭公信，所以他就把这个会议记录的这个原始文件做成这个照片，然后公布出来。那我们就针对这个照片里面的内容去做了一些查核。第一，我们发现这个会议记录里面的内容，其中有一段就是现在看到标红线的部分，跟这个刊登的报纸在3天前登出来的一则新闻内容是有这么一段话是完全一样的。这是什么意思呢？意思就是写这份会议记录的人曾经 copy and paste 这一份报纸的记录，他不能说明是谁做的，但是他完全告诉你，你可以看到，他至少这个写会议记录的人是非常懒惰的，他就是直接把它拷贝过来。这个技术很简单，在 Google Search 里面，如果你把它加上双引号，用 exactly code， 你就可以搜寻到。第二个，在这个会议记录里面，其实这个部分其实好多的这个媒体，包括政府，其实也发觉了，它里面有一些不是台湾政府会出现的字，譬如说在台湾党跟政是分得很清楚的，所以在政府的会议记录里面不可能出现本党，就除非在这个像菲律宾的这个 Golden Era 那个时代，就是党政不分的那个时代，除非在那个时代，否则的话，政府的会议记录不可能出现本党。也不可能出现像汇报这样的这个大陆用语，不会出现像这样的词的，它里面出现了这样的词。第三个，政府的会议记录按照行政院的规范是有一定的格式的，但是这一份会议记录跟行政院所规范的那个，就我们在右边看到那个是政府规定的格式，那个 formation 是完全不一样的。那这个是第三个证据。因此在这个新闻里面，后来我们的查核报告公布了之后，但这个案子后来其实检察官也开始查到最后是不起诉。不起诉的原因不是因为这个东西是真的或是怎么样，而是你在最后看不起诉的过程当中，事实上这个发布的媒体自己都承认这是一个造假的新闻，它也成为说不定是台湾历史上非常少见的由检察官认证的假新闻，就是一个极大的丑闻。然后到了正式选举的这个过程里面，在正式选举当中，我们会看到，这个阶段的做法，其实就比较接近我们在国际上的这个同行，这个经常还有这个事实查核中心其实也加入，我们就也有一起工作，就是在这个选举过程当中，不管是政见的发布，或者是政见发表会、电视辩论会里面所呈现的讯息， 我们如果觉得有所怀疑的，我们就会及时去做查核。那这个的话，我就不用详说，因为这部分的这个方法论跟工作方法，我相信大家其实都还是比较熟悉的。那这边举一些例子，大家可以看看。那在选举的过程当中，让我们印象非常深刻的就是这个纸传媒的这个案件。这个案件其实起于去年的这个12月6号。那如果大家很记得的话，这个时间是一个什么时间？差不多就是蓝白两边就差不多决裂的，差不多就是要决裂，然后决定这个各走各路，决定是一个这个三方的这个选举的这个格局。当它一确定出来之后，我们在12月6号发现了就看到了一个民意调查开始在网络上面传。然后从这个就是从一般的这个social media 传到了这个主流媒体。这非常巧合的就是说，他就是告诉你说，那个民调就逆转了，然后这个侯友宜就国民党的候选人就第一次超过了赖清德，就在这个蓝白宣布破局的时候，就出来了一个这样的民调，然后我们看到好多的这个媒体都跟进他。那我们后来发现，我们开始觉得它不对劲的原因，是因为它是一个我们不太熟悉的媒体，我们并没有非常熟悉这个媒体，但是却做出了这样的一个惊天民调。那于是我们就开始追踪它的来源，然后我们追踪之后发现，它来自于台中的纸传媒，连同它的一些关系网站，然后它有一些过去曾经不是很好的记录。所以我们就发掘出了像这样的一个生态圈。大家看到黄色的这个虚线，黄色虚线的上面，包括纸传媒在内，以及上面的这一些新媒体，全部都这些中间彼此不管是人事或者是持股，你都可以查到，他们其实就是同样的一群人，成立了不同的媒体。要做什么呢？就是说，在这个上头，在这个黄线上头，他在操作什么事情呢？他在操作的就是把他发布出来的讯息互相引用，互相引用的结果就是可以欺骗 Google 的演算法，让 Google 的演算法认为这个新闻是很重要的，因为有好多的人互相引用。所以我讲的就是说，这上头是可操作的。它操作的结果是什么？操作的结果就是让主流媒体的网络编辑在打开新闻的时候，会打开政治新闻的时候，这一则报道就会被推到很前面来，因为演算法已经被操弄了。所以当你看到这个网络编辑，就会觉得这个新闻好重要，于是就往下就开始引用，往下引用之后，从主流媒体，然后就进到节目，就进到这个谈话性节目，从谈话性节目进到这个中国媒体，从中国媒体进到中国的这个论坛，中国的这个 social media， 它就形成了一个这样的生态。那这个纸传媒案最后的结果是，其实非常戏剧性，就是在圣诞节之前，我们也准备要发表这个深度报道了。在我们准备发表的同时，台中地检署检察官就传唤了我们3天前才采访过的那个对象。那我还是跟大家强调说，这是一个审判中的案件，但是根据当时的这个起诉书，这一群操作民调的人，事实上是收了福建台办的钱，就他们是收钱做的假民调。那这个是一个我们非常在选举查核过程中非常难忘的一个案例。然后再来开票之后，我们发现有特定的政党或是特定的政治人物开始去操作选举造假这件事情。它的材料其实用的其实都是过去的材料，都是旧的材料，也就是台湾事实查核中心我们的这个战友们不断的辟谣，但是这一些东西它在事实的一定的时间它就会重新出现，一定的时间它又会重新出现。重新出现的目的是什么呢？我们看到它的效果就是 在中文的环境里面，特别是在中国大陆，在中国的社交媒体上面流传，然后造成一个印象，就是民主是个笑话，台湾的民主是个笑话，然后是个可以操弄的，是全部都在造假的。那这个是我们看到它直接的效果。那在台湾跟在这个中国的这个社交媒体上，像一个乒乓球一样不断打来打去。那这个是在选后就谣重传，然后丑化民主，这个是我们看到它的效应。那从开票日到就职日，我们跟大家谈一个例子，就是赖清德录音的外流。这个新闻，我想我们花一分钟听一下，因为这是一个闭门的论坛，没有替他宣传的问题，我们知道这就是一个有问题的东西，所以我们让大家先听一下。对不起。
赖清德险些大打出手，幸好大批人及时拉住，蔡英文才会挂彩。尽管后来蔡英文办公室否认他在大打出手，但是无风不起浪，这两人的关系确实不怎么样。岛内有媒体人甚至认为，蔡英文6年任内跟赖清德私下见面的次数是0次，而最近一段泄露的音频，坐实了两人复合的传闻。
你们都知道我跟蔡英文之间的矛盾是解决不了，我没有拿一面，但马上就已经出来了特色解决面，想必大家都知道他的目的，表面上看。他在帮我，外界都在说，蔡英文在我上任前帮我扫清障碍，帮我解决一个麻烦，但他其实是在给我出难题，很明显，剩下的时间根本来不及。他这
好，那个抱歉，就是外国来的朋友听不懂没有关系，反正他内容是假的哈，就那我们在拿到这一段声音的时候，其实。我们心里面就有一个警报响起来，就是很可能是 AI。但是对于我们来讲，其实前头的3位我相信都提到，就是 AI 生成的内容，其实对我们来讲是非常难查的，特别是 AI 原生的音频，因为 AI 原生的音频它有几个特色，就是我们现在在查核，我们只能把它送到像一些工具程式里面去查核。但是工具程式不可能100%告诉你它就算告诉你100%是，你也不可能相信它。所以在查核的时候，你要反复的听那个声音。从刚才赖清德的那一段声音里面，我们会去仔细的听它几样东西。第一个，它在什么样的场地？如果大家有听出来的话，它那个场地像是一个我们这样的一个会议场，然后它是拿着麦克风讲话的，而且有这个喷麦的这个声音，然后有没有异常的声响？有，然后他用麦克风。那这3个情况，其实你摆到这个谈话的处境里面，你会觉得非常的奇怪，因为如果真的有这一段谈话，他真的跟他的这个亲戚抱怨了这件事情的话，他不会拿着麦克风在一个会议室里面讲，这是个非常奇怪的情境。这个是我们查核的一个感觉。再来就是，如果我们去看政治脉络的话，赖清德确实在4年之前曾经挑战过蔡英文，陈水扁特赦也确实是个问题，但他们2个的立场是反过来的，一个同意，一个不同意，一个是要求绝对应该要特赦，所以他的政治脉络是不对的。但是在我们传统的查核当中，这些都不是100%的证据。所以对我们来讲，这一件的查核其实极为困难。困难的原因在于，能够说明问题的全部都是它的脉络，它的脉络不对，它的条件不对，它的环境不对。但是它没有办法像过去的查核一样，我们透过文字，透过严谨的推理，100%的告诉你它是对、错，或者是没有证据。所以我们现在碰到的困难就是，它会改变我们整个对查核，尤其是在 AI 时代，我们的 mindset 要改变，我们的工具要改变，我们的媒体识读的观念要改变。也就是说，我们必须要让我们自己查核人员，以及让我们的读者们都知道，有一些东西，当它从不对的脉络出来的时候，它很可能就是不对的。但是，如果 就内容本身，你去跟这个内容本身来缠斗的话，我们自己开玩笑说，如果我们面对的是一个政府，他以举国之力要造出一个你根本查不出来的音频，其实是非常容易的。所以以前的查核从内容下手，但是未来特别在 AI 时代，可能更多的我们要去考虑它的脉络，它出来的脉络，它传播的脉络，因为技术上要去造出这样的东西，其实非常容易。抖音上面它都有现成的套件，让你用一句话，然后选择你要用这个中国北方的口音来念，台湾的这个年轻人男生的口音来念，台湾女生年轻人的口音来念，台湾中年人的口音来念，这些套版都是免费的。所以将来我们会面对越来越多这样的东西，越来越精致。那我们唯一的警觉就是来自于我们对于媒体脉络的认识，包括它怎么传播，它怎么出现，然后保持怀疑，以及最后我们是不是有足够公信力的媒体，让我们来做最后一道防线。那特别是公共媒体扮演的角色极其重要，因为它是所有假新闻的这个最后一道防线。那时间的关系，我就先说到这里，谢谢大家。
谢谢李志德先就台湾在选举当中的假新闻情境做了一个非常生动的分析。那特别有3个案例，具体的来呈现假新闻可能面对的这种情境。不过最后谈到了 AI 生成的假讯息到底要怎么去面对，我想这其实是一个很重要的课题。也许等一下还有时间的讨论。那我们谢谢他。接下来我们就请台湾事实查核中心的邱香怡执行长来做下一个分享。
各位好，我是邱香怡哈。因为在志德后面讲，所以我觉得基本上就是对他的说法的一个补充。然后事实上在之前就是在我们那个 YU 还有在那个前面几位的讲者呢，其实都有提到哈。那但是我想我们能够提供的，其实就是因为我们是那个第一线的 fact checker， 所以我们会看到一些跟志德一样了哈。那我们会看到一些有趣的案例哈，所以我就可以给大家做一些案例的分享哈。那let me make it short. And what we observed during the Taiwan presidential election, around the election, we can sort in the main narratives of those disinformation, misinformation, rumors to several types. Maybe an important type is the rumors. It's kinds of rumors. One, two incited the anxiety about the loop war between the Taiwan Strait. The narrative talking about vote to some party if you don't want to get war, and don't vote to some party if you don't want to prevent war, and vote to some party then you can have peace. So the narrative of war and peace is the very topic and the very important sorts of disinformation, misinformation type surrounding the election campaign. And of course, the related another type of rumors, U.S. skepticism. The U.S. skepticisms, others panelists also mentioned. The U.S. skepticism, many kinds, and I got some link, but I cannot present everyone. You can consult you can reference the report. There's a number of our fact-checking report. On your handbook, you can find the fact-check report from our website. They're talking U.S. is weak. U.S. The society of U.S. is a chaos, and there's lots of discrimination, particularly to Asian, and the U.S. is not accountable, reliable friends, allies. And of course, U.S. skepticism. The context is that because the DPP, the ruling party, is linked to U.S. and the Revival Party, KMT, is more linked to China. So it's also a geopolitical related issue. So when they campaign the U.S. skepticism, also talking about the DPP is too close to U.S. and if the DPP get elected, then the U.S. the China will communist regime will get angry. Then you will invade Taiwan, etc. So that's the framework of the rumors types. And also another kind of rumor types is about the candidates themselves, and they were attacking. For example, they attacking Xiao Beiqing and about the nationality of Xiao. Before the election, say because Xiao's U.S. citizenship is not eligible to run for the vice president of Taiwan. And although we do the debunking because Beiqing already given up the citizenship of U.S. in 2002, but there's still lots of rumor circulating rampant about his U.S. Even now, we found several ones on web talking about Xiao is not the citizenship of Taiwan, is citizen of U.S. And of course, similar with Zhide just mentioned, the electoral fraud, election fraud after and before the election. There are so many shorts, so many videos talking about the election fraud, 坐票. There's going to be the problematic ballot box. Why the ballot box is not crystal, but actually never crystal, the ballot box never crystal because it's secret voting. But there's talking about magic crayon, it can be easy white and to do the cheating, and there's magic invisible ink supplied by CIA of US, and then the stem of the ink will disappear after voting, then to do the cheating, etc. And so many shorts, and then there is a combining one, includes 28 electoral fraud rumors combining together and put on TikTok. So we work very hard. It's really a hardship to do before the election, after the election, and the Asian Fact-Check Lab also do very hard, working very hard. And I want to show you some what we have seen during the election. It's a TikTok. I want to show you some example, then you can know what we usually see on our disinformation battlefield.
Xiao promotes U.S.-Taiwan relations, has rich diplomatic experience and outstanding leadership skills. William and Xiao became president. The United States is accelerating all arms sales.
I'm sorry, I didn't
U.S. military.
And 那个红姐, would you please, and 红姐 please, cannot reflect on the screen, cannot mirror into the
personnel with combat experience to assist Taiwan's training, invite Taiwan Army to train in the U.S., strengthening self-defense capability.
Okay, 我没有办法把它放出来。
Xiao promotes U.S.-Taiwan relations, has rich diplomatic experience and outstanding leadership skills. William and Xiao became president.
I want you to see the screen so you can. Because it's a fake shorts video, actually re-edited from authentic one. The narrative is about a U.S. congressperson, and he talking about U.S. and he himself support Xiao and Lai to be supported to be elected as a president, vice president. And if Lai and Xiao get elected, then the U.S. will accelerate sending weapons to Taiwan, and then will train Taiwan soldiers to increase the self-defense capability of Taiwan.
Zhao promotes U.S.-Taiwan relations, has rich diplomatic experience and outstanding leadership skills. William and Shell became president of the United
So
States.
you look at the Shell, it's built by deepfake technology, and the voice is an AI trained voice speaking to the person's talking. Okay, and just like Zhide mentioned, we know it's fake, because if U.S. politicians say like that, then CNN will report, New York Times will report, not just on TikTok. But we knew it's fake. But how can we verify? We don't know how to, because the digital, just like Zhide mentioned, the digital instrument doesn't work. Sometimes it works, but this one doesn't work. But we're very sure it's not real, but how can we verify? So, but until we find this one.
Sure.
That's similar technology problem.
I think the fundamental place for the
this is the original one.
Sure that we
we found it on YouTube.
Rebuild.
It came out in 2022, and that big one come out in 2023.
Exploration and production. I think if they're able to get fuel prices down, that's the driver on the economic side.
You watch the guy in the background of the video, the background of the Congress president. There's a guy with a gray shirt wearing a black mask.
Of food, of fuel, and help dampen the effects of inflation. So making sure they were energy independent, producing our own energy, that also gives us the ability to help out our friends around them.
Okay. So until we find an authentic one, then we solve the case. So this is a very sophisticated one we observe and circulate on TikTok. And who made it, we didn't know, but we just found it, and we flagged it up to TikTok, and TikTok removed it immediately. Usually TikTok doesn't care. I mean, sometimes we flag stuff to them, they didn't do anything, but this time, I don't know why, we don't know why, but TikTok just moved this one very quickly. So that's the situation we observed during the election, before the election. Okay, and so that's the US skepticism. What we saw on that shorts, it means two indications. One is US actually interfered in Taiwan election. And the second is that U.S. keen to push Taiwan into war, want to send weapons to Taiwan, want to train Taiwan's soldier, army, etc. So it's a kind of keen to push Taiwan into a war, and coherent with this one. This one is before the election, talking about Tsai Ing-wen. Tsai Ing-wen, at least secret resources say Tsai Ing-wen will send military to, will send weapons to Israel to help Israel to fight Hamas. And the resource, the media outlet is Radio France International is a French public media, and the narrative say the resources from Washington Post. Of course, it's very easy to do the debunking because there is no such thing in Washington Post, and there is no such thing in French Radio France International. But because we're journalists, we're professional, so we know that. But if other people, audience, just receive this one on their device, cell phone, they will buy in, they will believe, right? Because it looks so real, this one. It's say Tsai Ing-wen is going to the president of Taiwan, and what's the indication of this one? It means that CPP's leader, Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen, doesn't care about war. He's kind of provoker of war, send weapon to one side of the world, conducting now. So that's the very malicious rumor about Taiwan politician, about Taiwan political party, about Taiwan politics. And this one is rumors, also is war related, war and peace related. And let's once say, oh, the old man was sent to the battlefield now. And actually, there's a government document released every year to talk about what we say 退伍军人, mean is preparation, because the men go to army, then retire, then they go back to train every year until 40, or depends on what level they serve in the army. So that's those kinds of documents were released every year, but now became a material of rumors. Say, oh, the old men, even very seniors, 60, 70, will send to war, and the right one says the student will be recruited, get into the army. Actually, it's by the 全民动员法. Actually, is already 我们本来就有这个法. We got this law, and every student during even is an emergency situation. The high school student need to do some duty to service on the social order, etc., and to keep the maintaining the social order and social security. But it's a law already had. But the rumor use this law to narrative that a student is going to arrest, and the police will get into the school and arrest those students and catch those students and put into army. So that's the kinds of rumor try to trigger and try to provoke the fear and the scary of people before the election. So this one is lots of circulate rampantly, the TikTok and on YouTube and the shorts, because everyone can do the filming in a ballot station. And so they're collecting many video shorts and say, oh, you see, there's something wrong, there's something, because the volunteers, most of the voting workers, they are volunteers, so the process is not so perfect, so you can find many errors. But the process error doesn't mean, don't mean that the election cheating, election fraud, right? The process error doesn't mean 做票, but they will amplify those errors to election cheating. So that's the strategy, and that's the policy of those malicious rumors. Of course, I will do some advertisement for my organization. Before the election, we share our fact-checking skill with our colleagues and our managing editor, Ms. Chen, and our chairperson, Guo Shihong. We calling our media colleagues to share our skill, do a workshop for them. And actually, we do fact-checking of the public policy of candidates. And in the beginning, we worry about if some party always say the right things and if some parties say wrong, then we won't be balanced. But no worry, because every candidate, they say something wrong. So we did all of them, and we keep our balance. And there is direct broadcasting of TV debating for candidates, and we do TV debating fact-checking. Not real time, but delayed real time. 2 hours after the debating, we release our fact-check report. And of course, we got traffic on our website, historical high. And thank you for WFD and also the supporter of this event, and give us some funding of to do this. So, and that's my sharing for now. Thank you.
Mrs. Chu, she showcased several disinformation in Taiwan to demonstrate the situation of the problem of disinformation, which we will meet. So sorry about it. It's 5:18 p.m. now. We have 12 minutes left. Although we have 5 speakers in this session, but it's totally my fault. It's the problem of moderator. So although I prepared several questions for them, but I want to just open to the floor. Is there anyone have any question? Oh, two. And please. We let Mr. Chen first as Vice President of Central News Agency. Please.
Thank you. Chris from WFP here. I have a question for Wai-Yu and Lin, if I may. It's about strategic communication. We know that fact-checking can be time and energy consuming. Therefore, a lot of fact-checkers, they often spend most of their time producing fact-checking reports and upload it to a platform like a website. However, in reality, I think from the Taiwan experiences is that very few people can access to the report. So I'm wondering how can we strengthen the strategic communication to ensure that fact-checking reports have bigger impact, like reach more audiences from your experiences. Thank you.
Shall we collect another question? Yeah, Mr. Chen.
This is a question addressed to Wai-Yu. You mentioned that you started forming a coalition of partners 1 year ahead of the election, trying to cope with the mis and disinformation this time. And I'm not sure that missed it or not. I wanted to ask you whether, to what extent were you able to, if at all, were you able to manage to find out where those hoaxes came from? And you mentioned that the government needs to be, participating efforts that you started and together with civil societies and so on. And for instance, in the case of the Philippines, probably the government would not be so motivated, to take part in, mis-debunking operation or efforts. My question is, what was the attitude of the Indonesian government in trying to, debunk the hoaxes and misinformation? Thank you.
Does anyone else have another question? Yeah, this gentleman.
My name is Jason. I'm from NTU. I'm from the physics department. I want to ask to Mr. Wai-Yu and Ms. Lian. Indonesia and Philippines both lost similarly in context of how the fact-checking media can move the people. It's not only represented in the presidency result only, but also in the how do the people believe to the fact check that they do. I think it's not I think there are many similarities, like the positive campaign that the president and vice president did, then the myths, and then the avoid of explaining things, and also the focusing in building the persona. And I think in both the case, we can feel that the persona is much stronger compared to the idea and the information that they have. I think, in my opinion, it may be the case that it's not the information that matters the most, but the person itself. No matter what the journalists say to the people from the fact check result, the people won't hear it if they have liked the person. And it's not only about changing the vote, but it's to make people believe the media, to make people move from the journalists. And I'm kind of wondering what new ways that have you guys think about concerning this. And I think we need maybe like more revolutionary things, maybe like including psychology theories or something, like how the presidential, the president also campaign using like positive campaign that is involving a lot of psychological value. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to answer the question first? Thank you, Mr. Wai-Yu.
Thank you. Thank you for all the questions. I think there is a theme that from all the three questions that similar questioning the impact of fact-checking. How can we make sure that all of this debunking, all of this tackling of mis and disinformation have an impact in changing people's perception? Chris, your question is about strategic communication. Jason was about, how is it really effective, and how can we do it better? Mr. Chen is a bit different on the government response, but I will try to answer the first part of the questions. I think I kind of implied this in my briefing. I think I said that we kind of too focus on election and tend to not see the bigger picture, because election result is just an outcome of the changing information ecosystem that is happening right beneath our feet, that's happening right now, when people move their conversation to digital landscape, and then as media, as fact checkers, we don't really have access to identify what's really going on, to really understand what is really going on in this digital landscape, in this huge arena where millions of people have conversation, and the party that have this access, the digital companies, the big tech, don't really open that data to us, to the media, to the fact checkers. So how can we tackle the problem if we cannot see the problem, if we cannot identify where this is happening? And that's the second problem. The government don't really have the ability to regulate, to determine what is allowed and what is not allowed on this different digital platform. So I think this is a huge task, and this cannot be only the responsibility of the media. Fact-checking, the responsibility to improve the credibility of our information ecosystem is all of our responsibility. This is our common responsibility. This is our common job, and that's why I said that there has to be a comprehensive mechanism. There has to be a comprehensive project, or a collaborative project to tackle this issue. So I don't have the answer. What is the strategic communication? How can we deliver it better? I can say that let's use social media, let's use video more, let's try to use the language, the local language or the Gen Z language. Those are all practical answers. But the main issues here is we don't know where this conversation are all happening, and we don't have access to the data. We cannot see the bigger picture, and without the involvement of platforms and governments to regulate the platforms, we will never have that kind of access. The second question from Mr. Chen about the government response in Indonesia, we were lucky because during the pandemic, the government see this as a problem as well. So this is the collaboration with the government happens before the election, during the pandemic, and of course during the pandemic there is also a lot of health issues that also was, weaponized by people who don't agree with vaccination, with all sort of things. So when that happened, the government reached out to us, the media, the fact checkers, and we established a line of communication between the Ministry of Health and all the fact checkers community in Indonesia. And I think that the kind of collaboration worked really well in the context of the health issues. But when it comes to the election, I totally agree with you. It's a different situation because to some extent the government is also a player, and if they're part of the equation that they cannot be fully relied on to make an impartial position to regulate the information ecosystem. So that is still not happening in terms of the election. We are fact-checking the government in terms of the election. We are fact-checking the political parties, and as in Taiwan case, all the candidates' statements were also fact-checked by us in the media. So the government roles that I imply when I said that the government has to take responsibility is that they need to regulate the platforms. If the media cannot force the platform to open the data, to open access to fact checkers, then the government is the only party that can make that happen, because still the platforms is a company that has to be regulated by governments. Thank you.
Hello, hello. About how we can make fact-checking, how we can communicate fact-checking better. First of all, I believe that fact checks about really important, potent topics need to be quick, because the longer that the lie stays on the internet, even if you fact check it 2 days later, doesn't matter. It's been there 2 days already. It's entered too many brains for much longer. So I believe one point of reflection would be, do we really want to dedicate a small team to fact check hundreds of wrong information, or do we want that small team to focus on 10 crucial misinformation? So I believe we need to start reflecting about whether it's quantity or whether it's quality. Because if we tire out a small team of fact checkers, fact checking 100 articles a week on misinformation that are obviously really wrong, we didn't need a fact checker for that, but we're tiring out resources. So maybe it's time to reflect whether we should focus on quality rather than on quantity. Also, we need to think about the channel where we're pushing out the fact checks. So for example, in the Philippines, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, most of the misinformation were on Viber. I don't know if you have Viber in Taiwan. So it's like our messaging app. It's like our WhatsApp, our Telegram. So most of the misinformation was on Viber, but the fact checks were on our website. And these are elderly people who would not click on a website. They would just look at what they're being sent to them on Viber, and these are mostly JPGs, like images. They're not links because they don't wanna click on links. So maybe we also need to think about where we distribute the fact checks. We also probably need to assess how complicated our titles are. So for example, you are rating as false a misinformation that has a not in the title, like not. So if you say false, Taiwan is not, sometimes you get a double look, like it's double negative. And if you are if you're on the phone and you don't get it within 3 seconds, you move on to the next. You scroll, right? If you don't understand it within 3 seconds, you scroll. So maybe we also need to check whether we're making the titles really complicated. So those are my self-reflections. I wouldn't call them comprehensive, but those are my self-reflections. To your question, whether we need to start looking at it from a psychological point of view, it's actually part of what I will talk about tomorrow, but I will go through it a bit briefly today. I think I do believe that we need to look at it from a behavioral science point of view, because in our experience, it was not really correcting misinformation on the internet. It was changing hearts and minds. It was not in the phone. It was in their hearts and minds. And I think the Philippines as a country, we made the mistake of not listening. I think just because we staged a people power revolution in 1986, we immediately assumed that every Filipino holds democratic values fiercely. I don't think that's the case. I think that some Filipinos just felt nice that we were a democracy in 1986, but they didn't. they didn't necessarily become democracy lobbyists. And we failed to listen because we were in our echo chamber of the democracy lobbying circle. Another part of behavioral science that I wanted to explore is that when it comes to human rights, us human rights people like to believe that everyone cares about human rights. That's ideal, but I think people are driven by self-interest. So for example, Rodrigo Duterte was a very popular president. And because it was popular, the drug war, the war on drugs, sort of like also had a social approval. So people like Duterte, but I don't believe that Filipinos like to kill. I don't believe that my people support killing. I think at the end of the day, Filipinos just wanted to feel safe. I think what the war on drugs was making them feel is that, okay, my daughter could walk the streets tomorrow and she won't be harassed by a drug addict. So that's the emotional appeal of the war on drugs. I don't think they supported killing. But I think we also made the mistake of believing that people like human rights, that we don't like killing, and we failed to like look at the person and say, what makes you emotional? What drives you to support this? So yeah, I think we need to look at it more psychologically.
The organizer of this forum told us I have to close the discussion on time. So anyway, we talk about so many important issues about fact-checking and the journalism. We talk about the issue of AI-generated disinformation. We talk about the duty of digital platform. We talk about how to cooperate between the fact-checking organization and the media. But all of them are important issues. So thank you for the foundation give us this opportunity to discuss. So next year, please continue to hold this kind of seminar. We can discuss more and more. Yeah. Thank you for everybody. 我们要谢谢大家，我们的会议到此结束，谢谢。
谢谢您是5位贵宾。那我们今天的论坛第一天的场次到此结束，谢谢各位的参与。Many thanks to our moderators, Professor Hu, and our panelists. This concludes the session for the first day forum. Thank you for participation. 明天第一场次是10点钟开始，那我们9点半开放报道。那我们明天再会，谢谢各位。Tomorrow's session, our first session will begin at 10 a.m. Registration opens at 9:30 a.m. Please make sure to arrive on time. We look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.